Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Lam here. In today's Fuji Friday, we're going to be talking a little bit about firmware and possibly some speculation about the X-H2 and the X-T40. But before we get into that, I do have a little bit of a cold today, so I'm going to try to keep this short because my throat is really hurting me. But let's go ahead and get into some firmware. Now, there has been a lot of speculation about firmware for the X-T3 because we know there's going to be a lot of improvements coming out for the X-T4, and since the X-T4 and the X-T3, they share the same sensor and processor, you would expect that a lot of the X-T4 improvements will filter its way down to the X-T3. So things like the film simulations, improved autofocus, we expect to have these things in the X-T3. Now, there is a lot of speculation on when that's going to come, but my best guess is that it's probably going to come in the third quarter, maybe in the late second quarter, so don't expect it to be imminent. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the little brother, the X-T30, it's really getting left behind in terms of firmware, and I don't think that's a very good thing, and Fuji should concentrate a little bit about getting this guy up to date as well, because from what I've seen in terms of the online community that buys cameras, a lot of people start with the X-T30 as their first gateway camera into the Fuji systems because it's affordable and it's pretty much the 80% of an X-T3. So it's a really good way of getting into the Fujifilm systems. What they do is they usually buy this one, they learn how to use it, they usually stumble across one of my videos, ask a lot of questions. I'm really glad to help them out, and eventually they're the ones that are going to be considering selling off this body and moving up to something like an X-T4 and X-T3 because they've already put some money into that. It does resell pretty well. They can keep the lens and then kind of update to a better camera body. So keeping this guy up to date, or keeping the firmware up to date, should be on the top of the priority list, and I'm not sure why it's so difficult keeping these two camera bodies kind of in sync with firmware, because they also do share the same sensor and the same processor. So it would really be nice if they actually focus a little bit on this little X-T30, because it is definitely an excellent camera and it is a very good introduction camera into the Fujifilm systems. All right, so let's go ahead and go into a little bit of speculation. The X-H2 is something that a lot of people have been speculating about, especially since the X-T4 is going to inherit the IBIS technology that the X-H1 was really known for. A lot of people have speculated that it is going to go away, but I have heard from multiple sources now that the X-H series will not be going away. They're still in development. It's not going to come out in 2020. The earliest that it can come out is in 2021. Now, I don't have any information on that. I only have rumors just like the rest of you, but I'll give you two speculations. One, what I hope would happen, and two, what's probably going to happen. What I hope would happen is they actually transform the X-H series into a intro to medium format. In other words, their GFX line, since the GFX 100 has been so stellar and it's kind of set the bar for what medium format can do, they should just keep the GFX line as a high-end medium format camera for the real true professionals, the ones that are willing to pay 10, 15 grand for a camera body, and then transform the X-H1 line into the introduction medium format, costing somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 to really compete with the full frame professional cameras, because we already have a huge selection in the X-T series for crop, but we only have one line for medium format. So by bumping that up and then creating multiple lines in medium format, also creating different gaps in price point, which would be really nice because some of us do really want to move up to medium format. Unfortunately, $10,000 is quite the hurdle, and the first generation cameras, they really just don't cut it because they just don't have video the way that I need it to in order for me to actually go into those type of camera systems. It really starts with the technology from the GFX 100, trying to scale that down a little bit to something that's a little bit more intro for medium format, which can compete with full frame. That's what I hope happens, but it's probably not going to happen. What's most likely going to happen is that the next generation of crop sensors will come out and it'll get introduced with the X-H2, and hopefully they're going to put in a new processor. The quad-core processor that they've put in for the X-T3 and the X-T4 that's coming up has been stellar, because you've noticed quite a lot of improvement in features, and I think that's because there's a lot of headroom in that quad-core processor. Hopefully they continue to be ahead of that power curve and put in new processors with a lot of headroom so that they can continue to push, autofocus features, new features out there. into these cameras so that they can last for years to come if people don't want to upgrade, because that's one of the excellent things about the Fujifilm system is that if you skip a generation, you're pretty much okay, but once you get 2-3 generations in, it's probably going to be time to update. But at that point, you probably got your money's worth from that camera body, and there's probably going to be quite a lot of features that you're going to get jumping 2-3 generations. Moving on to the last subject today, which is the X-T40. The reason why I want to talk about this one is because the X-T40 is usually right behind its bigger brother. So a year after the X-T4 is going to come out, you should see an X-T40. Now, what I have to say here is that the X-T30 is so good, and I don't think the X-T40 is going to inherit the IBIS technology because it's such a small, compact frame, and it is a really, really important price point camera because what happens is that this is a top-of-the-line camera, but it's sub $1,000, which makes it really great for people who want to get into the Fujifilm system, but really has a camera that they can grow with. So keeping that sub $1,000, I think, is super important. So in my mind, what they should really do is that, yes, they're going to bump up into a new X-T40 just to keep it in line with the X-T4, but they should only make minor improvements, keep the overall body the same so that it doesn't actually inherit more cost, because it is just a great small camera. I really don't think every camera in the Fujifilm system needs a flippy screen. This one with just the regular screen is fine, because if you're going to be a vlogger, you either can go for an X-T200 or you can pay top dollar and get an X-T4. Both of those have flippy screens, and that kind of represents the low tier and the really high tier. So that's already covered right there. So from my vantage point and the people that I talk to, hopefully they keep the X-T40 affordable. They just upgrade the firmware and also some of the specs to it to keep it in line with the X-T4, and then they should have a very capable camera. It should be a pretty minor update so that the people that do have the X-T30, they probably will not need to update to the X-T40, but the X-T40 is just kind of for people that are just coming into the Fuji lineup, and then that gives them a good gateway into the Fujifilm system, and then potentially upgrade into a camera like the X-T4 or the X-H2, or maybe even go into medium format. But there has to be a really great entry-level body for people to really use and really grow into, and that's what's going to create a loyal user that's going to continue to buy Fujifilm bodies. Anyhow, that's all I have this week. Sorry, throat hurts a little bit, so I'm going to cut it short. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.